Welcome back to the Contacts Coaching Podcast. We have a special episode today as we are joined by Mindset Enhancement Coach Jayson Wells, calling in from the ATL this morning. Coach, thanks for being here today.
My God, I feel like when we got to get these things produced. When you say that, you got the round of applause going in the background. Is that what's happening?
add some canned applause to this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Absolutely. That would be fun. All right, so little backgrounding information, Coach. If you don't mind taking us through your professional journey, but also how did you even get here, right? Because you grew up like most of us did, having a childhood, having a young adulthood, going into some different things, and then pivoting again. And talk us through, give the audience a little background of who you are and how you got where you are, and what does it mean to be a mindset enhancement coach?
Man, so the first part of it is born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. You know that. So as we record on a Tuesday morning, my Browns put it down last night on Monday night against our other in-state team. So I'll go quick shout out there.
Which is good because last week they disappointed you, if I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 45 years old. They've disappointed me for the good majority of my life, bro. So, but yeah, from an athletic standpoint, I'm born and raised in Cleveland, man. I'm a Cavs fan with or without LeBron. I'm a now Guardians fan. We just came up. We made it to the playoffs and lost to the Yankees. And I'm a Browns fan, and then I'm a Buckeye, although I went to Indiana State University. And so first 17 years of my life, I pretty much didn't leave Northeast Ohio unless it was for a quick trip for wherever we were going for that quick trip. And then at 17, I leave Cleveland and everything that Cleveland represents. And for me, Cleveland represents urban, inner city in the 80s and 90s and everything that came along with that, whether it's drugs, guns, gangs, violence, or whether it's just, a community of people that support and encourage and challenge, like all of that. And then I get uprooted and I go to Terre Haute, Indiana, which is ultimate culture shock, and spend the next little bit more than four of them from an educational standpoint. But my mom actually moved from Cleveland to Terre Haute going into my junior year. And so even my first couple years pro, I would come back to Indiana to kind of sit my bags down and figure out whatever I was going to do for those few months that I was home for the summer. So, and now my ex-wife, you know this, but just sharing for the listeners, my ex-wife is actually from that area. And so when we got divorced, she moved back to that area. So now my sons, who are now 15 and 12, are living there. And so for whatever reason, I can't get Terre Haute out of my system. So it is what it is. But after that 13 years pro all over the world, people asking me where I played. And the first thing I tell them is throw a dart. Let's test your world geography, throw a dart, and let's just see where you are. You'll be somewhere close. And yeah, man, that was the platform of where we are, how I am, and just kind of morphing into that. So that's the high level answer to how I got here.
Thank you. And I would like to know how you transitioned from being a professional athlete to being a mindset enhancement coach. I know there were some bumps along the road, but it wasn't like you put your bags down for that last time and hung a shingle. It was like, yo, here, I'm about to enhance the world.
Yeah, no doubt. It was, I used the phrase, it was a lot of trial and error with a bunch of error. So, bro, I got out of playing and I knew that I never really wanted to be a bench coach. I didn't want to be on the sidelines. I didn't want to deal with playing time and parents. So I got into the skill development side, and I was literally one of the first people to use that phrase. I am a stickler, man. I despise social phrases, social norms, social habits, and that word trainer just never sat well with me. So as I ventured into this quote unquote coaching space, specifically within the skill development realm, I was really adamant about that word because I knew even then, before I was able to verbalize it, that what I was doing and what we were doing with the people that I had access to, it was so much more than getting better at your jump shot, getting better at your ball handling, getting better at whatever we're getting better at on the court. It was true skill development, and testament to that now, shoot, less than a week ago, I had breakfast with one of the guys that I started working with him as a 7th grader. He's now a 19-year-old who has chosen that this is it. I want to start business life. I want to start real life. I don't want to keep playing basketball. And much to the initial dismay of his parents, my conversations with them were, you do realize that this is the same young man that you've been grooming, which is why you sent him to me for as long as you did, because you knew this day was coming. It just came quicker than you thought it was. You thought it still had 4 years of college left. And he decided, after he was one of those guys that had a double senior year because of COVID. And I really think, man, that will be a very interesting demographic of person to look at over the course of the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, to see how they decided, especially from an athletic standpoint, how they decided to navigate through their athletics. Because you have him who went through a double senior year of high school and said, I'm done with it. And then I got another one of my guys that started off at Indiana State and is now doing his 6th year at Tennessee, which is where he's from. And he's playing in the SEC, and they just beat Gonzaga the other day, and he had 26 points, and he's got his 5th year. He's got his COVID year, and he had an injury year. So, you know, you're talking about a young man that is now on the backside of coming out of COVID, but playing at the highest level. Like, bro, it's just so much to it. That's going to be an interesting dynamic as we navigate through this.
Given your background with athletics and given the groups you work with now, which span from CEOs of companies to other collegiate and high school coaches, and I know you worked with some middle school kids that Kimon had brought you into, but what would you say you've noticed in regards to the value proposition of athletics at whatever level in shaping, preparing, and allowing for navigation? That's not the right word. Processing when adversity hits. How have you seen that play out in real life based on those people that have a background in some sort of competitive athletics and those that don't?
Bro, when I tell you that question has presented itself as recent as, you know, that for the past 4 months, I've been taking this leadership training, this leadership workshop, where I've been driving back and forth to Charlotte. And there's a good percentage of my team, the group that I'm going through, the cohort that I'm going through this leadership workshop with, that's under 25 years old. 6 of them are under 21 years old. So it's that same college dynamic. And my biggest challenge with the people that weren't in that athletic space is, like, I feel like when you step into the athletic space, especially at that level of college, high school, college. So you mentioned middle school. I've kind of shifted out of that. I'll do a middle school, you know, for a friend or kind of as a one-off, but that is not my wheelhouse. So Kimon actually teaches high school now. He's actually seniors in high school. But me just kind of being able to get more clear on my vision, the thing that I've noticed is, if you're in that athletic space, consciously or unconsciously, you come with this level of desire to grow, desire to improve. I call it performance. With me and my 3 Ps, people, purpose, and performance. The performance piece for me is, athletically, yes, we know how to gauge. We can gauge results. We can gauge improvement. But also in the non-athletic space, what does performance look like? And for me, it's the same thing. How do we elevate? How do we grow? How do we improve, enhance, any of those words that we want to use to be able to say, now what do I do to be able to show up and do something more, better, or different? If I'm already doing it, how do I do more of it? If it's something that I can do a little bit better, okay, cool. What are the steps that I need to do better? And if it's something that I just need to do totally different, or that I'm not doing, it's that. But Yeah, I feel like those of us that have come up in an athletic environment, no matter what it is, we're more open to being in that place of growth. It's the next play mentality, bro. Like, again, sometimes it's unconscious. Sometimes you work I've worked my way into it without even consciously thinking next play, next play, next play.
Right.
And sometimes it's very conscious, like, oh man, that either went exactly how I wanted, and I know it's not going to always be like that, or that did not go how I wanted, and what do I now get to do to show up differently? So I think it's that part of it more than anything.
Yeah, for sure. No, and the reason I ask is what I've, as an athletic director and a coach for 25 years, what I have, I think, realized in a soundbite is that athletics in general give you an opportunity for immediate feedback and failure at a tempo and pace that's not seen anywhere else, regardless of what sport, right? You're just getting reps at falling down and getting back up, which then is applicable when catastrophe hits in life. Not that people are thinking, oh, what did I do in my football game? But it's like, hey, I haven't been here before, but I've been here before. And
Sure.
being able to use that to leverage their comeback, so to speak. And so I thought, since you work with so many groups, what would the sample size look like? And it's kind of validated what I've experienced. If we can dive into the weeds now a little bit on your coaching journey. And what I mean by that is, as an enhancement, a mindset enhancement coach, you're basically coming in and working with people and trying to get them to the next level, whatever it is, whatever the industry is. And in that, you've been able to work with teams specifically, right? You've had a handful of college teams you've worked with corporate teams. But what I'm curious about, and I'm going to ask questions as you go through this, but I usually ask coaches, what's the best thing you do in your program that has the largest impact on culture? Meaning specifically, if you left that job and went somewhere else, what would you take with you, right? And then people talk about culture and these other things, but they're never really able to kind of dial it into a specific. And so from your standpoint, as you work with these teams, what are some themes that have percolated up that are areas of immediate enhancement and growth that have the biggest transformation on success, however you define success?
Yeah.
But it's like, these are the themes I'm seeing. This is where I'm constantly working with these groups, and this is the outcome as a result of that. Are there a handful that you could just list off the top and talk about why those show up all the time and what you do to address those?
Yeah. Couple different ways to go at that. So literally mindset would be one. I don't know if this is in order, but I am a firm believer that I cannot and will not outbehave my thoughts. So what I think is catalyst to everything. And if you want a little bit more tangible to that, if I'm going to the gym as a behavior, but my thought process is still wrapped around, why am I going to the gym? I ain't going to get nothing out of the gym. I don't even like going to the gym, man. I really wish I wasn't here at the gym. It's only a matter of time before I stop going to the gym. Because my mindset doesn't even allow me to be able to wrap my mind around why it is that I'm going outside of me. You and I met in the PGC space where it's like outside of me. Like, how do I show up? How do I show up when I don't feel like being here? And so that's really where it's laid out for me, is that mindset piece of our thoughts become things, and those things often become the things that we do, our habits, which is, if I'm talking about my coined little acronym of MAP, it is mindset, approach, and process. Your mindset is what you think, what you believe, what you value. Your approach become your behaviors and your habits and the things you do. And the process becomes how you align those things up consistently for me to be able to say, here's where I am as a result, whatever that result may be. Here's where I am as a result. Is this where I want to be? If it's not where I want to be, how quickly do I realign myself with where it is that I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
Because this ain't it. Or I get to also ask myself, is this where I want to be? This isn't where I want to be. And am I more committed to being here where I don't want to be? And I need to lose my original vision because I'm more committed to being here. But like all of those things happen within the process. And so mindset would be one. And the other big one that comes up for me that's cross sport, cross industry, cross organization is communication. So I am designing as we speak content that I'm calling brick by brick. And brick by brick will be that culture content where we're talking about how as leaders, as coaches, as guides, we inspire and grow these cultures that we say we want. And they vary. You know, the culture at Chick-fil-A is different from the culture at University of Alabama football. Mm-hmm. It's different from Google, it's different from Apple, and they are all recognized as great cultures. Mm-hmm. So now what are those things that we can now extract, using your word, mm-hmm. that across the board, whether or not we're in the black for Q3 or whether we're in the red for Q3, what are those things that consistently come across? Whether Alabama loses a football game and they go from number 1 to number 6, like that culture didn't change. You know what I mean? And so the communication piece and the brick by brick piece is the bricks are these big things like accountability and respect and loyalty. The communication, bro, and if you can get this visual, the communication is the mortar that keeps those bricks together. When you look at a wall, the bricks don't often crack. What cracks is the mortar. What cracks is the communication. We stop communicating in a way that's bringing value to our team and to our culture. And once that communication starts to crack, now the wall just becomes less sturdy.
Great visual. Let me push back on the mindset piece. Not in that I think you're wrong or right, but how would a layperson who is not educated in the ways of Jay Wells, how would they tackle a lack of alignment of mindset on their team, in their group? What are some things and tools that they could use that may solve it, but definitely aren't going to hurt it?
Yeah, I think it's asking those questions of, so again, you know this because of our friendship, but like those mile markers, and I think this is another great analogy, which I'm finding out is one of my superpowers, is my ability to be able to share visuals, to paint a picture for people. So if I'm driving up the PCH, I know I'm going from LA to the Bay. Mm-hmm. I'm also not paying attention to the mile markers as I go. Mm-hmm. When do I start to pay attention to the mile markers? When something catastrophic happens, when I get a flat tire, when I break down, and I got to tell roadside assistance, hey, I'm not quite to Malibu, but and I got to pay attention to that mile marker. Within the experiences that I deliver, I purposefully pay attention to the mile markers. Mm-hmm. And those mile markers become, is where I'm at and where we're at as a team, where we want to be. And if it's not, then we get to ask those questions. What's working for us? What's not working for us? What do we get to add differently to this? So that would be what I would say. Like if I'm, because here's what you got, bro. And this is across the board. You have a bunch of coaches that have defined success as wins or championships, conference championships, state championships, how many kids I got to college, and that's how they've defined success. And so if I'm defining success as that, and I'm checking the box for those things, why would I need to do something different?
Right.
Why would I need to show up differently? So literally, that's why this is wild, even knowing this. 3:00 last night, I'm East Coast. 3:00 last night, I'm up wide awake, charged, and I've got content running through my mind to where as recent as 8 hours ago, 10 hours ago, I've changed some of the titles to my content to be one word specific verbs. So now my coach inspired content is now titled Evolve. How do you evolve as a leader, as a coach, continuously? And they don't have to be these big things, but you think about, you can't tell me that the Coach K that started coaching in the early 80s was the same Coach K that finished in 2021. There's no way that over 40 years. Now, his principles stayed the same, but he had to modify his procedures, how he went about it. He came in probably yelling, screaming, cursing at Jay Billis and Tommy Amaker and those guys when they came in. And not that he didn't yell and scream at a Jason Tatum or Zion Williamson or Paolo Banchero, but how he went about it had to change. So that's my thing, is evolvement as a leader is, how do I cling to my principles and modify my procedures?
Right. So on that, you have this is a word you're going to hate, but I don't have a better way to describe it, but a catchphrase about that, actually, right? Cling to unchanging principles and what's that phrase that you shared?
Like change with the times and cling to unchanging principles.
That's what it was. I tried to, I was actually talking to my women's coach 2 days ago about that, and I didn't deliver it as cleanly as that, but it was something that you had said before, where we were talking about schemes and personnel, and it was like, yo, cling to unchanging principles and modify for the times.
But
and
bro, do you realize those coaches, the now Steve Kerrs of the world, the you know, even the Billy Donovans, even you know, the Mark Fews of the world, like, we often give credit to coaches who make great in-game decisions. Like, who's able to modify the scouting report in the middle of this game to be able to now say, oh, cool, that's what we practice, but that ain't gonna work. Do you realize how versed and how in-depth you have to be with the game plan to be able to change it? Like, that's a lot, man. And like, those are the leaders that can be in the middle of what's going on and be able to say, oh, okay, cool, sharp left. Like, I think we talked about this before. Muhammad Ali, the rope-a-dope fight, that was an in-fight decision. He didn't, that wasn't a game plan. He went in after the first round and went to his corner and said, mission aborted. You got to be really wrapped around your values and your principles, because those don't change.
Right.
So yeah, man, I think that's a really good.
Let me go to this communication piece, which was your other biggie.
Yeah.
What is the impact that great communication or lack of communication has, not just on end result, coach, but on day-to-day experience? How would you say you've observed that? And how would you say you can enhance that based on doing a handful of things better?
Sure. First question would be this. Never once in any environment has somebody walked in and there has been a lack of communication and they felt good about that. And I'm not one to work in absolutes, and this is one. Lack of communication is always perceived as negative, always. So you walk into the house with your wife and she doesn't say anything to you, you don't walk around and be like, oh, she must have had a great day. We're in a great space. It's all damn what, you know, it's something. There's going to be a perception of this ain't good. So I think that's the first part, is understanding that when communication is void, people will fill that void with negativity. It's just natural. And I feel like the other piece is this: guiding people through different forms of what communication looks like. Because many times I feel like we think that communication is what I say. And I'm not even talking about the whole verbal, nonverbal piece. Yes, that's a part of it, the verbal, nonverbal piece, what I say with my body, what I say with my facial expressions. But I'm even talking more from a standpoint of listening. as a part of communication. And one of the things that I challenge my leaders with immediately is we, as leaders, we must lead with listening. You have to go in with your ears. This is not 30 years ago, 40 years ago, where it was come in and shut up and do what I say because I said it, because I got it and you don't. This is not that. This is now a big part of this is knowing what my team needs, what the people that are in my care need and want, and making them feel like they're a part of what's going on. Because if not, bro, there's just automatically going to be dissension. So for me, a big part of how we introduce communication is the flip side of that, which is shut up and what your two ears doing.
Yep. It's interesting that you say that, especially the part about getting them involved, because that is a learned skill. It is a vulnerability that people have to embrace and understand that it does not take away from your knowledge. It does not challenge your ego. It's
or power. Don't take away from your power.
Yeah. But it's also very interesting in that it's not always received that way from everyone. We had a situation with one of my coaches who they went to play a game and the other school had the time wrong and they were going to have to sit there for 4 hours, and he's calling me and I'm like, he's like, what do I do? I'm like, ask the kids, like, do they want to bail? Like, let's go see what they want to do. So he asked the kids and they're like, yeah, we got to be back. We don't want to sit here and wait. And as they get ready to go, like, this parent basically rakes him over the coals. Like, it's a failure of leadership. Why would you ever ask the kids? And it's like, what are you talking about? What he's doing is being a leader. Those are the stakeholders, not you. What are your thoughts on that perception that a parent would have that somehow doing exactly what you just prescribed had the opposite effect in that parent's mind?
Yeah, that's old school. That's old school. That is somebody holding on to what we've always done, because what we've always done may have even produced some success. Like we say it all the time, you and I, we're all in the same generation. We're both in the same generation of like, look at me, I ain't turned out too bad. You know, these kids are soft. These kids are soft. Like let's just take 15 seconds to think about when we say that this generation of young person is soft. This generation of young person, people 20 or less, they've been through 2 recessions, they've been through a war, they've been through like all these, like a pandemic, they've been through all like soft. They've seen more death than any generation pre-20. And they haven't even necessarily been a part of a war. Like early 2000s, we got Gulf War that went on for, but like we ain't talking about World War I, World War II, Vietnam type, like, and they've still witnessed more death outside of war. So let's stop calling them soft and let's redefine what we think toughness is.
Right.
So yeah, I think for that parent, that leader, that coach, that, you know, you giving some leeway, or not even leeway, input. You giving your team and the people that are in your care some input into what they are ultimately going to be doing. If you think that's a lack of leadership, yeah, I feel like it's only a matter of time before your leadership gets questioned.
Right. And that's what I told him. I was like, no, you did everything right and good for you. Way to go out on a limb and ask for some input, which isn't necessarily your normal MO, but you were able to get a feel for what's going on. Similar to what you said, if there's a void in communication, it gets filled with negativity. You went out and asked, hey, what do y'all want to do here? And I can't encourage enough of my fellow coaches to do that more often than we do. So circling back to your work with sports specifically, besides communication and besides mindset, what are some things that you've seen jump off the page that have been positive with some of these teams that you've worked with that you have been able to then appropriate and offer to some other teams? Hey, I was working with Mo's group and they are elite at this, and this is how they do it. It may or may not fit your culture, but it's something to consider.
Yeah, without a doubt, relationship. And this is one of those things to, like, you say that to an old school, stuck in an old school coach mentality mindset type of way, and his or her first response is, I mean, you know, it ain't my job. Like our parents used to tell us, it ain't my job to be your friend, you know, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that form of relationship. What I'm saying from a relationship standpoint is first, and this is where it's challenging for most adults, is let's assess the relationship you have with yourself. And this is in any relationship. Like I just read through some things. I could probably not scroll very far through my phone because just last night I was screenshotting some things that were older. Here we go. The most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. Your relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship you have. Like we have these cliche things, which is another one of my deals, commit to the cliche. We have these cliche things of knowing the importance of the relationship we have with ourselves, yet we don't do it. And we neglect that. So we've got this internal war going on within ourselves, but then we try to go coach up a bunch of 18 to 23-year-olds, or in your case, a bunch of 14 to 18-year-olds. Like, what are we doing? So that relationship piece, and then also with the relationship piece is now how I extend that to them. Our coaches, parents, teachers had no reason or no interest even in having relationships with us. It was do as I say when I tell you to do it, period. Even with how you communicate to your team, it's not that you can't yell and scream and curse at them. You just better have a hell of a relationship that allows that to be able to happen. Mm-hmm. You can't walk in with the way that we got walked in and talked to. You can't leave with that no more because there's no relationship. So, you know, one of my coaches told me that the relationship has to be strong enough to bear the weight of the truth. You've heard me say that before.
Mm-hmm. I use it all the time.
Like, how gold is that, bro? Mm-hmm. How gold is that? The relationship has to be strong enough to bear the weight of the truth, because many times the truth is heavy. You're not good enough to shoot that shot consistently. You're not good enough to play these minutes. You're not good enough to make this team. Like that, those are all very truthful things. But the relationship that I have with my team allows me to now have those challenging conversations and it be rooted in the relationship. So now it doesn't either go in one ear out or out and out the other, or it doesn't immediately get reflected back because I'm defensive because I don't even like you. So I don't trust what you got to say. So yeah, that relationship piece, even though it's an intangible thing, that has been one that when I saw it happen with one group, to the ability, and I use these words, ready, willing, and ableness. We talk about that all the time as a society, but to the readiness, willingness, and ableness of whatever other team or organization I'm working with, relationship will 100% be hit.
Yeah, no doubt at all. I mean, I think commit to the cliche in the last 15 years or so since Joe Ehrman put his books out, right? You've got this idea of the transactional versus transformational coach. And a lot of that has to do with relationship. I mean, you can coach in whatever way you want, but if somebody feels like hell, their property versus in relationship with you and partnering with you, you're going to get much different results, regardless of what the scoreboard says, just in life beyond your sport, right? When the ball stops bouncing, when we all retire. And I think that's something that I'm reminded of daily, especially weekly in our calls. But how do you lean into that piece rather than the X's and O piece, right? And allow that to take care of itself to the extent that it can. What advice do you have on that for coaches?
So part of that is going back is the communication of how I communicate to my coaches and to my leaders of these teams and organizations is I don't care about your X's and O's. If it's a basketball coach, I don't care whether or not you 3/4 the post, whether you deny the wings, whether I could care less whether you trap ball. I could care less about any of that. What I know is this: the better relationships you have, the more trust that's generated within that culture, and the more love that is overarching with that. And I've said this before, and my definition of love, because I know that can, for certain people, that can immediately be a frou-frou word. Like even when I'm in the corporate space, I don't lead with the word love. I use care, because that's a little bit, a little bit lighter for a corporate CEO than love. But my definition of love is a commitment to someone else's well-being. So if I'm forging these relationships, growing these relationships within my team to now create this environment of trust, and within trust, we're talking accountability, we're talking honesty, we're talking giving and receiving feedback, like all of those things are trust things, but it's all rooted in love, which is, at the end of the day, bro, I'm committed to your well-being, and I'm committed to what you want for you, not what I want for you. That's a different piece. So I don't talk about X's and O's. I got no desire to talk about X's and O's. And it's funny, man. And this will literally be my say this and shut up moment with this. All of the coaches that we consider to be great from a winning standpoint, a championship standpoint, a result standpoint, they all focused on these intangible things first. We give Wooden all of the credit in the world. And we talk about winning 10 in a row and winning all. Yeah, I know you're looking at the success principles. I know, you know what I'm saying? Like all of these different things. Yet this is the same guy that said, we're going to learn how to put our socks on and tie our shoes up.
Yeah.
Like the Lombardis of the world.
Well, even on that, Jay, it's like, you're right. I looked over in the base of the pyramid, right? Industriousness, friendship, loyalty, cooperation, enthusiasm.
Nothing about how we gonna play this ball screen, nothing about rebounding, nothing about effort. It's like Maslow's hierarchy. Like what, like my number one thing is I need to be fed and home. I have a house over a roof over my head.
Right.
So yeah, man, I am a firm believer again that, just like I said, I feel like you can't outbehave your mindset. I feel like you can't out-result your X's and O's won't mean anything without the core of what you just read across Coach Wooden's bottom line of the pyramid. Without connection, relationship, trust, being able to give and receive feedback, love, care, whatever you want to put to it, we can win all the ball games in the world. And then what?
All right, dime store psychology then. Why, Coach, do you think people struggle with that piece of coaching, mentoring, teaching, and default to, well, if I got this other play I can install, everything's going to change? Why do you think that's the default?
It's easy. It is in the first book of Over My Right Shoulder, Things We Know But Do Not Do. There is a chapter in there called Simple versus Easy. And it's that. Yeah. Simple and easy in my world are not synonyms. And we do, because we just unconsciously use language interchangeably. But like for me, when you think about it, what's simple is often not easy. Kobe's Mamba mindset. We talk all of this stuff about Mamba mindset, the 5 pillars: be resilient, be relentless, be passionate, be obsessive, and be fearless. It's really simple. It ain't easy though,
No, it's not.
And especially it's not easy when that alarm goes off at 4 a.m. On the day where your stomach hurt or your head hurt or you and your wife got into it or your child is sick or whatever it is. And I don't feel like that's when it becomes not easy. How do you lose 20 pounds? It's really simple.
It's not easy.
It ain't easy though. And here's the easy part, bro, is simple is I'm committed to losing these 20 pounds. I know I got to eat right, get rest, work out consistently, and do all of this. And when Climo calls me and says, yo, Jay Wells, the Browns are on Monday Night Football. Let's go have some beer and some wings. Oh, okay, cool. And then what do? I stay out longer than I wanted to, which means I don't get up for my 6 a.m. workout, which means I now going to say I'll work out at 6 p.m. But at 6 p.m., I got the whole day on my shoulders, and now I don't feel like working out again. I'll do it tomorrow. That's what's easy. And I think that's the answer to your question, man. Like, coaches will go to coaches' clinics that will tell them the next sideline out of bounds or baseline out of bounds or quick hitter action.
Right.
As opposed to going to the culture character building coaches' clinics, because that's too much. There's a lot of mirror moments in those. That's why Sunday nights are so impactful for us.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, 2 more questions.
Yeah.
1, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I want you to give me and the audience, more importantly, it's not me, I'm just hosting this, facilitating this conversation. 1 or 2 people that you think do this at an elite level that coaches wanting to evolve should study.
Dang, this is wild, because both people that immediately came to mind aren't physically here anymore.
Okay.
One, I just mentioned him, Kobe Bryant. What Kobe was about to do is what LeBron is going to do, but Kobe was going to be first in his age and retirement and all of that. Kobe was going to be first. And what I mean by that is he was about to show us exactly what Act 2 looks like. In a totally unrelated way. Yes, I'm going to spend these 20 years showing you this platform and walking on this platform. But he wasn't even a year retired before he won an Emmy and an Academy Award in storytelling. You know, before he ventured out into the financial side and became a venture capitalist and things like that. Like it's that part for him. And then the other guy is Trevor Moawad, who is Russell Wilson's longtime performance mindset guy. And it's wild, bro. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on one of our calls. Like, everybody's talking about Russell being in Denver now, and you know, he's not playing as well, and he's getting paid all of this money. And this is also the first year that he has not had the guy who's always been able to ground him next to him. Trevor passed away September going into last year, his final year in Seattle. And he probably played that year off of adrenaline and off of kind of just natural instinct. And then in the year of playing through that year and now having the first 7 or 8 games through this season, it's probably started to kick in that, damn, I don't have that support system like that anymore. And I feel like that's a part of it. But like anybody to find things on Trevor or on Kobe, like that to me is a mindset of greatness.
Love it. Thanks for sharing that. Especially the explanation of why. And I think you started this years ago, right? Jayson with a why, because it's all about the why. And I often feel like that gets in the way sometimes of our relationships, right? Asking people for things or showing up and not really understanding the why, which means you're not all in because you don't get it all. So what is new with you as you pivot into this space and you go to this conference in Charlotte and you evolve our group and how we operate together? What's the new things that you're working on? What are you putting out there into the world that you want to shine a light on? And not only that, but you need help messaging.
Sure. 2 major things. One is, I don't know who the hell I think I am, but apparently I'm an author. So book number 2 is on its way. I could put an extreme urgency on it and say stocking stuffer, but I think that would be too much. So we're probably looking at top of the year. as far as a release. And it is, so title's already set, content's already set. So the title is Coaching Champions, and the subtitle is The Game Plan to Becoming a Great Leader. And GREAT is an acronym in true Jay Wells form. So at a high level, the acronym is, because we can always argue. We can always argue, like, even who's the GOAT? Is it Michael? Is it Kobe? Is it Bron? Is it, if we're arguing championships, it can't be Bron because Bill Russell won 11. Like, why we never talk about that name? But there's always something tangible to argue. And so what I did is I wrapped the acronym around intangibles. Great leaders, great coaches, great parents, great people are always growing, always learning, always looking for that next way to enhance, evolve, to improve. Great leaders are rooted in relationship. That's the R. Same thing that we just talked about there. Yes, the relationship within themselves, and now how that relationship extends out to the people that are in their care. Great leaders are tapped into their energy. They understand that my energy is contagious, and my energy as the leader weighs more than somebody else's. You know, like you as the athletic director, you come in a not great mood. That's not the same as one of your coaches coming in with the same, like your energy weighs a little bit more.
Right.
Great leaders and great coaches are aware. Again, this is all individual work first before I extend it out. So my awareness is now a couple different things. Like, is this one of those days where I go in and it's a 45-minute, let's get in and let's get out? Or is this a 2.5 hour grind them out, practice? That's an awareness piece. Is this a day where I need to get you in and get you out? Like, all of those things are a part of awareness. And then the T is trust. Like, again, going back, relationship has to be strong enough to bear the weight of the truth. If you are a great leader, your team trusts you. So growth, relationships, energy, awareness, and trust is the acronym to that. So the book is one. And then the other major piece of who I am right now is 60 Days Old, which has literally become a culmination of who I am, what I've been through, and things that I've always been passionate about. But we are in the midst of creating an organization, which is going to be a nonprofit organization called Shoes Have Souls, SOULS. And so I've been able to verbalize my why, my vision for the world. So my vision for the world is to lovingly unite the world as team. And how I'm going to do that is connect the world through story. I feel like that's a big challenge that we have, is what we do on Sunday nights. We tell different versions of different stories, and Climo's story is different from Jayson's story. And that doesn't mean that Climo's story is not valued and not worthy. And that doesn't mean that because it's different from Jayson's that now creates some type of division between us. No, it doesn't. So with the Shoes Have Souls, it's this big picture of, there will be a book associated with that as well. Think Chicken Soup for the Soul, but premised around shoes. So a collection of stories, a collection of principles, and people will contribute their own individual stories, which will create the book. There will be a podcast associated with it where we're going to be sharing stories through the shoes. And then the big picture is, I have this vision of raising money and donating 158 million pair of shoes around the world to, yes, homeless, yes, underserved and underprivileged, but also that person who, like, what's that first pair? That first pair that really like, so maybe you don't wonder where your next pair of shoes is going to come from, but that first pair of shoes that made you feel like, oh yeah, like this is it. Whether it was on court, off court, on field, off field, it could be pumps or heels for a lady. It could be a pair of dress shoes for a guy, but like that pair of shoes that like, oh, okay, cool. So yeah, man, those things really exciting.
Where can people who are interested in either of those projects find out more?
So Shoes Have Souls, we're designing the website as we speak. That will probably have a soft launch of probably 10 days from, I don't know when we're going to air this, but it's November 1st recording. So probably in the next 10 days, that website will be up. We'll also have a tab on my already existing website, which is my name, JaysonWells.com. So even before that website goes up, tabs and information on my website will be up. And then the book will be, shoot, bro, like my plan is to be done here in the next 30 days and get it to editing, and again, have it in people's hands, whether it's electronically or tangibly with a book, top of the year.
Awesome. Awesome. One more question. Because you've mentioned it a few times and we're referencing our Sunday nights and the other groups that you lead, if you're open to it, can you give a little 60-second soundbite on all of the groups that you host, offer, and where people can find out more and potentially join?
Sure. So Sunday nights is men only. We call it the squad. And the overarching theme behind it is, we call it the insecurities of identity. So we take these 4 areas of status, performance, appearance, and money, which is another J. Wells acronym. So that's SPAM, status, performance, appearance, and money. Basically on Sunday nights, we get together as a group of men and we talk about the things that we typically don't talk about as men. We're not talking sports. We're not talking cars or women. We're talking, man, what's challenging in your life right now? So that's a Sunday night deal, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. And then on Mondays and Wednesday, Monday mornings, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific, and Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific is the other main group. We call that the Explorers. And really that's the collection. It's a co-ed group of people who get together for an hour on a Monday morning, an hour on a Wednesday evening. And it's really the same thing. You just got both genders represented. All of those things in a nutshell is just, for me, a representation of the world, bro. Like, you got all kind of people on there: black, white, male, female, gay, straight, Republican, Democrat, like, and it is, for me, a microcosm of what I feel like the world is, because for 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week, we get on and absolutely none of that matters.
Yep. Thanks for sharing that. So if people are interested, best way to get a hold of you on that is what?
Reach out to me. Jason@jasonwells.com is my email address. We will be throwing up tabs as we revamp the website. It's also jasonwells.com. If you spell it correctly, you'll get there. But initially, reach out to me through email with either of those things, and I'll make sure that I'll respond to that email. But then what I'll probably do is just have one of my team members reach out and how you can be connected to it. But yeah, I want to grow that group. I want to make purpose popular, bro.
Yep. And I'll tell people that are listening, it's been something we've been doing for almost 2 years now, I think. And it is a grounding moment every Sunday for me, to take my mind away from some other things and to be in a space where you can share and emote and have some conversations you normally don't have. So thanks for sharing that, Jay. Thanks for being here today. Appreciate you taking the time.
My guy, how quickly does an hour go?